The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism says that approximately 18 million people in the United States suffer from some sort of alcohol abuse disorder. But what does that mean? I'm Carla, and this is my addiction presentation. Alcohol abuse and alcoholism are often used sort of interchangeably, but they actually are distinct terms. When we talk about alcohol abuse, we are talking about excessive use of alcohol, often leading to risky behaviors, but this is often intermittent abuse. Think of somebody who does binge drinking on the weekends, as opposed to alcoholism. An alcoholic needs alcohol to get through every day. They cannot get by without alcohol. Now, they are linked though, because alcohol abuse often leads to alcoholism as people become more and more dependent on alcohol. I wanted to focus on this specifically within the LGBTQ community. Now, across the board with addiction, the queer community suffers at higher rates and is at greater risk. This is partially because there's a lot of comorbidities. There's higher risks of mental illness, of depression, of anxiety. And this, of course, is not because anything innate within the gay community. It's because of exterior forces, because of stress as a factor of discrimination in social life, in the workplace, and also within their families. A lot of homosexual people have been rejected by their own families, and they lose a sense of community, which puts them at risk for mental illnesses and strife, which puts them at risk for substance abuse. Now that I mentioned those risk factors, it's probably no surprise that alcohol abuse is on the rise across the board during the COVID-19 pandemic. What are some of the risk factors I talked about before? Well, there's isolation. Check. Social isolation is a major social ill at the moment in a way that it has never been. Decreased financial stability. This leads to more stress, more anxiety, and also more people losing housing. Another risk factor, grief. People are grieving literal loss of life as well as lost opportunities and lost ways of living, which put you at greater risk of substance abuse because people are looking for coping mechanisms, and a lot of their go-to coping mechanisms, which are connected to social networks or hobbies, are no longer available. Now, some of those risk factors I just mentioned because of the pandemic may sound familiar, and they are presenting a particular problem, not just with the gay community, but with gay youth. So, gay youth are experiencing an increased rate of alcohol abuse at a much higher rate than the general population because they already had a bunch of these risk factors, and in terms of how they are managing through the pandemic, are more at risk for certain things. For example, a lot of them have had to return home to families who potentially reject or don't even know about their identity, or even if their families are supportive, potentially to environments where the culture generally is hostile to their sexual or gender orientation. It's also a really critical time in the life of gay youth. The 18 to 29 range is usually a period where gay youth are finding community, finding confidence, pride in their gay identity, and acceptance of themselves. And for those who can't depend on their families for community, it's where they start to build that community. And that entire aspect of their experience has been destroyed by the pandemic. So, questions. 1. What macro level supports do you think could be put in place to mitigate this problem? 2. Why do you think queer community is so important for LGBTQ youth? And 3. How do you think generational trauma in the queer community may play into this? I'm Carla, and thanks for watching.